Today I want to talk about Corpus Christi, the Feast of Corpus Christi, and what it might mean for us today. And I'm doing it in the lens of a little bit of history, but really a sort of bloke's view of communion. So this isn't going to be the most theologically profound thing, but it explains some of, I think, what's important about receiving communion. And why I say blokes is I think I'm coming at it from a sort of blokish spirituality. It doesn't mean, hopefully it may be meaningful to anyone watching this, but that's if I'm honest and nailing my cousins to the mast. So Corpus Christi, the festival, is about the institution of Holy Communion, and the Church of England's always had a problematic relationship with it because it was started by the Roman Catholic Church. This is not a festival that goes back to the apostles. This is not like Christmas and Easter, which they were celebrating from the word go. It starts in the 13th century. It's at the high watermark of the cult of the saints, and at that point you might go to a relic of a saint, St. Cuthbert, and when you go to St. Cuthbert's relic, you would be sanctified, a miracle might happen, you would get closer to God. And at that point, the Pope at the time introduced this festival thinking, well, if they can find God just by a holy relic, what about the real McCoy, which is when we get to Christ at the altar? And at some point, there were huge processions, and there still are, in Roman Catholic countries, and in some high Anglican churches, and the consecrated host will be processed around. And some people think this is nonsense because it's idolatry, if you like. This is a mistaken understanding of what's eventually a meal. Jesus did a meal. Why are you doing this? This is idolatrous. For other people, it's totally profound. And I don't want to quite go into that. The classic debate, because the classic debate's about, is this really the body of Christ, which is transubstantiation? Is this just a memorial meal? So it's like a symbolic thing, that the consecrated host. Because I think at day-to-day basis, that's not quite what I think is going through my head when I'm celebrating and presiding at communion or receiving communion. And to get to what I think more closely is what's going on in my head, and I accept this is a sort of blokish comparison, so, there we are. This is actually, it's not about communion, it's about funerals, and it's a different culture, it's an Afro-Caribbean culture. But being clergy, we go to quite a lot of funerals, and there's some with cremations, but these ones are at the graveside. And what will happen when someone gets buried is you put the coffin in the grave, and you say ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and you say the final prayers. And then in white British culture, we leave it to the grave diggers to put the earth back onto the coffin. In Afro-Caribbean culture, the family do it. Specifically, to be honest, the blokes. It's quite a gendered thing. And so these spades get passed around these blokes, so the nephews and cousins and sons, and they're putting the earth back in, and then some bottles of rum start getting passed around, and it takes quite a while, it's good for half an hour, 45 minutes of putting the earth back in. In the meantime, women are singing hymns. I mean, it's a hugely gendered thing. And, that's got its own issues. But I think it works. And one of the reasons I think it works for blokes is that we're not very good about talking about our emotions. We're not particularly good about talking about spirituality or things like that. And we've had this point of high grief, and this gives us something to do. I don't know exactly what's going on, but as these guys work up a sweat and they're burying their loved one, I think it's a profound moment for them where they can honour their loved one and sort of do an act of work, a physical thing to represent the honour and the love they have for the person who's died. So I suppose the idea I want to take from that is physical stuff to represent something spiritual. And I think if you come and take communion on a Sunday, one of the things that happens is it's possible for men to do this spiritual thing, and it doesn't involve talking. They don't have to share their feelings. They don't even have to sing out loud, which for some men is quite embarrassing. You just come forward and you receive, and it's your own thing, which you don't have to explain. You can just do it. And you can push quite a lot deeper than that, because you're going to church to get closer to Christ. And when you receive the body of Christ, you're taking him into your heart and you're inwardly digesting on that. And then when you go out from church, you're going out with Christ embodied within you. And there's all sorts you can take from that, which is on that spectrum of metaphor and reality and symbol and figure and real thing. But I think that's one of the reasons communion can kind of touch the parts that other things can't reach, especially for men. This is a blokey understanding, so this is not high theology, but I think there is something awesome and important about this physical reception of Jesus on earth. And I think that's one of the reasons this is the thing we do and do and do and do as Christians. And I commend it to you.